video, I wanted to go over some general guidelines on how you should engage in wars and the minimum that you need to do to be successful. A lot of new players and returning players want to be involved in the wars on their server, but they get into their first war and they basically just get farmed out. They don't end up doing a lot, and even just having a couple players who don't really know what they're doing hurts the war team. It hurts your chances of being in future wars when you go in unprepared. So hopefully this video helps just highlight some of the basics that you need to succeed in a war. The footage of this video is provided by Snow the Gremlin. I'm going to post a link in his Twitch in the description. Make sure to check him out if you like war content. If you subscribe, you should be able to see when he goes online, and that he should usually be for war times. So I think he's a good player to watch. And without further ado, let's just hop into it. Now I want to start off with bruisers. Bruisers are the most common role you'll see in a war. Those are going to be, in general, medium armor, great axe, hammer players. One for bruisers is to make sure that you're going into clumps with some escape ability. So that's your shockwaves, your charges, oak flesh, cleansing pots, whatever works for you. If you don't do that, all you're going to achieve by diving into a clump is your own death, and you're not going to be helping your team at all. Tip 2 is to engage existing clumps with rotations. Now, what is a rotation? It's basically using all your abilities off of each other to get the most value out of them. If you don't do this, you won't do enough damage to kill anybody, and you're just going to have your enemies heal right back up, and you're gonna have to start from the beginning again. A good example of a rotation is Gravity Well into Shockwave into Maelstrom, for example, for Bruiser. Doing this will do a lot of AoE damage and secure kills for your team. Tip number 3 for bruisers is to light attack healers or peel for your healer while your ability is on cooldown. If you can't get to a healer or there's no one attacking your healers, just try and left click something that looks squishy that you can actually put pressure on. You just don't want to be standing there, you want to be doing damage. Now for mage players, this is your Ice Gauntlet and Void Gauntlet players. The first tip is going to be to play with your bruisers. If they're diving the clump and playing on point, you need to play with them. You need to be communicating what you're doing. Let them know if your scream is up, if you're gonna go in for a scream or go for your own combo. If they're diving on point, you're diving with them. If they're playing off point, you play off point with them. The second tip for mages is to use your abilities effectively. Similar to bruiser rotations, you have your own rotation, and you need to be saving your abilities for that. As a mage, it's really tempting to just throw orbs into the clump, scream random people, but you really need to be using your rotations and getting the most out of your abilities. Your priority rotation is always going to be Scream, Oblivion, and Orb. These abilities are extremely key because they're removing your opponent's buffs, they're cutting their heals, and that's how you win these big clump fights. Tip number 3 for mages is to play more aggressive than you might normally. In a war, medium mages are about as tanky as your bruisers, so while you don't want to be playing quite as far up as your bruisers, you do want to be up there in range so you're letting your screams and you're letting your combos. For healers, my first and most important tip is to observe your surroundings and play to stay alive. Once you call your sacred ground, you say, sacred ground on X player, you want to be looking around and keeping yourself alive. If someone's chasing you, you don't want to just be casting healing spells on your team. They should be fine on the sacred ground, at least for a moment. And if you're being chased, you need to avoid the other players more than anything else. A dead healer is not helping anyone. Second tip for healers is to use your riposte effectively. I see a lot of healers get hit by a Gravwell and use riposte right away. What you really want to be doing, especially if you get hit with the Gravwell, is to use your evade, use your flash first, and then when you're finally caught out all the way, that's when you want to use your riposte last minute. This is going to be a huge game changer if you're not already focusing on doing this, and will save you a lot of deaths. Tip number 3 for healers is to use your ult often and do not hold your ultimate. You generally get your ultimate back faster than anybody else in the war, so use it as needed so that way you can keep playing more effectively and get the most value out of that ultimate. Side note, you can also auto attack the dummy once you get into fort phase to get your ultimate up even faster, so you're really just spamming it at that point. Now for some more general tips, the number one thing in wars is to communicate with your team. If you're a healer, you need to be calling your grav wells. If you're a mage, again, you want to be calling out your rotations when you're going to go in for your scream. And as a bruiser, you need to be calling out your grav wells. If you're not doing this, your team is not going to be working well together. To add on to this, you can also call out your aggressive ultimates like detonate or vines. If you're in a dedicated kill group, you want to be calling out healer names. And if you see someone call out a healer name and you're on that same healer, you need to say seen or acknowledge that in some way. If you're not comfortable talking on your mic, it's good to practice with your team ahead of time and try and do whatever you can to be in sync with them. Practicing these comms in one OPR can make a huge difference long term. General tip number 2 is when you are getting pushed back by your enemy, you want to start playing horizontally. That means you're not going to run backwards, you're going to run to the side. Generally, there is a raid plan that your guild leader or whoever your shot caller is going to cover before the war, and they're going to put you in a certain area. You want to kind of hang around that area and play towards that, so that way your army as a whole can be a solid unit. Running straight back or dodging straight back is a great way to get fort camped and to get pushed all the way back to the back of the road or wherever you don't want to be. For my third tip and last tip for this video is when you start taking the fort or defending the fort, you want to be playing for the ramparts. That is the stairway up and around the fort. Usually the team that can secure that is the team that takes the fort. So if you're defending, you want to get your mages up there casting, you want to hold those stairs, protect your shops. If you just play on the point, you're gonna have a bad time, especially as respawns start getting longer and trickling in. It's just not gonna work out for you. If you can get on those ramparts, you can put a lot more pressure. Your healers can play extremely safe in the fort. And so if you can get to that point where you're up on top and you have that height advantage, you're going to be winning the fort phase a lot easier.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
That about wraps up this video, guys. I hope these tips help you and make you a better war player and a better war team if you're sharing this throughout your war team. And in general, if you like this type of content, make sure to give me a like and subscribe on this video. I'm a new creator making New World content, and it's mostly just a way for me to learn Premiere Pro, but it also allows me to make cool, helpful stuff like this for the community. If you have any guide ideas or anything simple I can make outside of my usual shitty montages, please reach out to me on Discord, in-game. I'm on Yggdrasil, US West, and or just reach out to me on YouTube or in the comment section below. Whatever works. I'd love more ideas on that front. And yeah, again, thank you for watching.